There we go. Hey, there we are. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Today's Tuesday, March 16th, 2021. I'm Trey Crowder, and that's Mark Agee. What's up, Mark?
Nothing, Trey. Feeling mixed emotions because happy the pandemic's almost over, but I realized it's been a whole year and I didn't learn a single new skill. So
Yeah.
I didn't do
Well,
anything.
you didn't do nothing. I did a couple things. I picked up baking, which is very frustrating. Bread has a mind of its own. I found out yeast can't figure out how that works, but we're trying. And then most recently, me and my sons planted a little garden of sorts. And I talked to my mama. I got her advice on it because she always had a garden growing up, and it takes a little while for seeds to sprout, but every day for the past like 7 days, I've been telling Katie, like, them seeds is dead. I did something wrong. I killed them seeds. That's not right. And she's like, it takes a minute for them to sprout up. And I'm like, no, 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 I did something wrong. But the past couple of days, seen some little greeneries coming up through there. I've got like, yeah, 14 little sproutlings. We're going to see, your standard herbs and peppers and whatnot, but I'm looking forward to it. So we'll see what happens. So you didn't
Nice.
do
My
nothing. You learned
no,
nothing.
no, which is weird because like of the two of us, I'm the one much more likely to think the apocalypse is about to happen, and you were out there preparing to make and grow your own food, and I was just like ready to die.
Yeah.
Uh, my dad, we had a garden when I was a kid, but ours was like 2 acres, and my dad would make me work in it all summer. So I'd like kind of like, I guess that's why I wouldn't survive the apocalypse, is I have this like innate resentment of having to grow my own food because I
Yeah.
most identify with fighting with my sisters in the dirt.
Yeah. You're like, no, I live in the future. I don't need to know how to do this shit. This isn't cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The apocalypse comes. That's fine. I don't need beats. I'll be, whatever.
yeah.
You
I mean,
go
I never
beat somebody
understood.
up and steal their beats, Mark. That's
Yeah, that's why you stock up on ammunition. What I need beans for if I have a gun and ammunition? To take
right.
your
Yeah.
beans.
That is the
Uh,
American way.
I never really related to apocalypse movies because like I always think like why are people fighting so hard to survive? I don't understand it.
Yeah. Just let it go.
Yeah,
Just lay back and take it.
there's no more air conditioning. Like
Yeah.
there's no more
What's the
TV or
point? There's no more
movies. Yeah,
HBO. Right.
no,
Yeah. No air conditioning, no HBO. Just take me now, apocalypse.
yeah, get eaten by a
Yeah.
zombie. Yeah.
All right. So, with us as always, producer Matt doing his thing, and this is Weekly Skews tonight. We engage in that time honored American tradition, particularly in the South, of ragging on Mississippi for a while, particularly their governor, Tate Reeves, who remains steadfastly dedicated to his governance philosophy, which states that owning the libs is more important than taking care of his people. We'll get into all the gory details of that. We also, a little bit later, are going to have a conversation I'm very much looking forward to on the subject of populism. What is it really? What should it be? And also the future of progressivism in this country, particularly in rural America. And we'll be having this conversation with one of the OGs of the field, Mr. Jim Hightower. It's going to be a great show. But first, as always, we begin with the Daily Dumbass. Matt, graphic, please. If you have it, he literally just texted me and asked me to stall for 2 minutes. That's what I'm going to do. Um, yes, Jim Hightower is a former two-time Texas Commissioner of Agriculture, but also has been a populist commentator on radio and in print, and a New York Times best-selling author for years now. So this man has walked the walk for a very long time and knows exactly what he's talking about. So, looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah, I like this is my. I was reading up some background information about Jim. There's a profile in the LA Times written in 1985 when he was the Texas Ag Commissioner, and it's a quote he had. Ronald Reagan promised us a 7 course dinner, but all we got was a 6 pack and a possum. So
A six pack
already
and
my
a
hero.
possum. I
Yeah.
like that. So our buddy and friend of the show, Drew Morgan, is back in Morgan County, Tennessee, right now. It's just a
Mm.
fun little story for y'all. He went back home like All right. Sorry about that, everybody. I'm texting producer Matt trying to figure out what to do. I'm gonna, for just a second. So Drew went back home to Morgan County, Tennessee. Hadn't been there 2 weeks, and he's posting pictures of himself with a possum on his shoulders. So just
You
dove right
know,
back into the culture. He's now got a the equivalent of a parrot for a pirate, but in Morgan County, that's a possum you get on your shoulder.
but the funniest thing was we were texting him about here comes Matt. We were texting. Drew was in the middle of a long ass rant about how like media stereotypes hillbillies and Southerners as being like poor white trash idiots. And then in the middle of that rant says, "Hey, my buddy just brought over his pet possum. This is a picture with a possum sitting on his shoulder."
Yeah. All right. Matt said he had to restart on his end, and now he's back. So, okay. All right. On tonight's Daily Dumbass segment, for the second week in a row, we're going to be discussing the N word. Is it making a comeback? Many would say it never left. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, if you missed it, a Oklahoma high school basketball commentator was so incensed by one team's decision to kneel during the national anthem that he referred to them as, quote, fucking N words. Although, of course, he didn't say N word. He said the real deal, full hard R, put all the stank on it, whole 9 yards. He did this without realizing that he was speaking into a hot mic. Now, you might think that's a truly monstrous thing to have done, but before you rush to judgment, you should know that the man in question has since provided a perfectly reasonable explanation for this. Matt, play the clip if you have it.
Shay, the announcer, Matt Rowan, issued a statement apologizing for his comment. He said he's not a racist and said he has type 1 diabetes and that when his sugar spikes, he becomes disoriented and says things that are inappropriate and hurtful. Now, to be clear, saying inappropriate and hurtful things is not listed as a symptom of diabetes on the Mayo Clinic website. Talked to the Norman Public School District Superintendent over
They went to the
Zoom today.
website, Trey.
He told me he wants the
All right,
NF.
that we've got what we need out of that, Matt. You can cut that off. So, Mark, the sugar made him do it. What do you think about that?
I mean, diabetes causes racism. I'm happy that science has finally discovered what causes meemaws. So we finally got to the bottom of that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I like. Obviously, the knee-jerk reaction is to, make fun of this man. But I think about my time growing up in rural Tennessee, and this is anecdotal, I admit. But in my experience, I feel like the Venn diagram of people with the beatus, and I'm not talking about diabetes here. I'm talking about the beatus, which is its own special subtype of diabetes. Mm-hmm. The Venn diagram of people with the beatus and people who said the N word, there was a fair amount of overlap there. I feel like there might be something to this hypothesis.
just in a hunch, Matt looked up a map of the states with the highest rates of diabetes. And if you have that map, throw it up, Matt, because it's pretty much proves this guy's hypothesis.
There you have it. Look at that.
Yeah, look where the red is. The red is where the red is.
The red is where the red is.
So he might be onto something there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
This guy's going to write a memoir probably about N words took my foot. That's what
Yeah.
Yeah, this dude. Look, obviously we're kidding around and making fun of this guy because that's what he deserves. And I said jokingly a couple times, "Oh, don't judge him till you hear his explanation." No, please judge him. We've had a conversation similar to this on here before, and I know it's not naivete, but it continues to blow my mind that I know he thought the mic was off. I cannot imagine a person with the audacity to say something that hardcore about a group of high school children with a microphone in front of his face and in a public setting. You know what I mean? I know it isn't surprising, but to me, it's just like the level of brazen, shitty stupidity of so many people in this country never ceases to amaze me, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't work for the school. I forget why. He works for some company was broadcasting high school girls basketball game, and I don't really understand why. But anyway, he got suspended while they're conducting an investigation. I don't know what you're investigating. The guy already admitted he said it. It was on tape. But if you're not familiar with Norman's a college town just outside Oklahoma City.
Yeah, OU, right? That's where Oklahoma University's at.
So it's a college town. Those kids, if you look at the news report of the story, all those kids weren't even. I mean, half the kids were white. They were kneeling in solidarity with their teammates. And by the way, in response to this, the next game, both teams kneeled. So, they asked one of the students, and they're like, "Well, the dude actually showed why we kneeled." So there you go.
Right.
That puts a bow on it.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so moving into the honorable mentions. First up, honorable mention for Daily Dumbass. We have cats, in case they ever thought Donald Trump gave a shit about them. And Matt, you can put the clip up whenever you have it. He dropped in for a special guest appearance, unannounced, in Mar-a-Lago.
So look it up there. Look, I see all these beautiful women, this incredible So I didn't exactly prepare for this. But I was walking and I hear everybody screaming in the bar, and I said, "What's going on?" They said, "We're going to help dogs," and that's okay with me. That's what we want to do. And I want to thank Lori, and I want to thank Laura, who's been so incredible. And I don't know, you're running for the Senate. I hear she's going to win. And I want to thank you for what you're doing. Is so important. It's so great and so important.
The video goes on where he goes to say we had many high-level meetings in the Oval Office about how to help dogs. I don't know how to say this, Trey, but I do not believe him.
Yeah, something seems a little off about that to me. I assume these were like good, high-quality dogs, as opposed to Joe Biden's piece of shit, old-ass sorry dog, which
like he's biting everybody.
The American right has made a point of disgracing in recent weeks. These are only the good dogs that they're saving.
Yeah,
but
Trump famously hates dogs, by the way.
About how this works, right?
So
Laura Trump question.
Laura Trump runs a dog charity, which apparently serves as a pass-through to pay donations to Trump properties. It was basically the same thing that Eric got caught doing with children's cancer charities and what Trump did with veterans charities. And the reason they lost their licenses the Trumps are forbidden to be on the boards of charities because they got caught stealing so much. Laura apparently has escaped this ban, and she runs this dog charity that has raised, that particular event paid Mar-a-Lago $225,000. I don't know how much went to an actual dog. I'm guessing not much. But over the years, $1.9 million of all their money, $1.9 million has been paid towards fundraising costs. So which is a typical charity hustle. What you do is you take the money and you pay yourself the money for raising money.
Right.
So that's what Laura's up to right here. So Trumps are doing what the Trumps do, which is find honor systems, exploit them. Yeah.
Grifting. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. But like you said, that's how a lot of charities grift in that way. I mean, I'm not ragging on the concept of charities. There's a lot of good charities out there too, but it's a common thing in the charity world that, they take, there's like some really low percentage that they have to spend on the actual cause. And as long as they do that, then technically they're still a charity. But what that amounts to is like the vast majority of the funds they take in just goes to like paying themselves or lining their own coffers in one way or another. So the Trumps are doing that to dogs.
It's like in a breast cancer awareness month. If you buy a pink Dallas Cowboys hat, 10% of the profits go towards breast cancer research, which is not even like, so not 10% of the net, 10% of the profits. So 90% of the profits are still going to Jerry Jones.
All right. We had another couple of honorable mentions, but producer Matt, if you're listening right now, I want to skip ahead to the artistic masterwork that former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin's been spending her time on in recent months. Mark, you want to set this up for us, please?
All right. So Steve Mnuchin's wife, her name's Louise Linton. You might remember her from the pictures holding the money at the money factory. I forget the Mint. There you go. And she also
down
got
there
in
at
trouble.
The money shop, where they where they make the money stuff at. Yeah. Yes. The Mint.
She also got in a fight with a bunch of a few years ago. Got in a fight with a bunch of regular people on Instagram because she grammed herself stepping off of a U.S. government jet, which she wasn't supposed to be traveling on. And someone's like, "Really? You're wearing like Louis Vuitton shit in a taxpayer-funded jet?" And anyway, she gets, "I'm sorry, my life is more important than yours." She actually said that to a lady or something approximating that. Anyway, if you wonder what she's been up to in the years since, besides hiding out in Los Angeles and trying not to be in the newspaper anymore, she got back to making movies. She was an actress before she met Mnuchin, not a particularly successful one. Her credits are mostly like Dead Hooker and CSI and stuff like that. But anyway, so now she has Steve Mnuchin money, so she financed her own movie, and it's pretty amazing. Let me read a description from one of the reviews. The movie it co-stars Gossip Girl's Ed Westwick. It has diamonds, spider sex, spin classes, knives, fight scenes, curling irons as weapons, Theraguns, whatever that is. The line, "I'm going to disembowel this kid and kill him," which she says, a wedding, a dinner, and a menu that includes testicles and a drug-fueled poolside orgy. Now, I want you to remember all that and watch this clip of this scene, which is about nothing except her being cool as shit.
It's a dream. No neighbors, huh? Throw some pretty sweet parties. Won't get any noise complaints.
Oh, there never is.
Activate party mode.
Party mode.
She's like, that's enough. At the end, she shuts it
Yeah.
off.
Activate party mode, Trey. Activate
party mode. It's like she can't just go into dancing. She's first got to activate party mode, then just break it down for a little bit, and then after that, just stop. I also love how my man's rocking the that 90s shirt
Grunge.
tied around your waist thing, bringing it back, man. Imagine being that dude. Just imagine, do you see him trying to react to that? Doing as good a job as anybody could do, I feel like, because what do you make your face do when your face is pointed towards that happening right in front of you?
When you watch the trailer, it's pretty apparent she's trying to do some sort of dark comedy or parody of people like herself. But here's the thing. It's kind of like if you made American Psycho, but Patrick Bateman was being played by Patrick Bateman.
Right.
Because here's the voiceover over the trailer. All right. Yeah, let me read it to you. "My name is Catherine Black. You may think that I'm a materialistic, narcissistic, self-absorbed misanthrope. I don't deny it. I'm a hedge fund manager. I'm addicted to fashion, the accumulation of money, exercise, and sex. My life is incredible."
For everybody, we haven't yet mentioned, for anybody that's curious, the name of this cinematic masterpiece is called Me, You, Madness. I believe it's available on demand right now. If anybody wants to check it out, and it's one of those things where it's like, I don't necessarily want to support this, but I can't help but want to watch this now. I'm
gonna
not
watch
lie.
it.
I want to see. It's train wreck cinema. I've got to see it play out.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch it.
All right. So we mentioned up top we're going to be talking shit about Mississippi for a little bit. Again, this is mostly about their governor, Tate Reeves. What's going on with him and them right now is he's made it clear that Mississippi is going to reject the Medicaid expansion for working class constituents. Essentially, they're turning down a lot of money, a whole lot of money. They basically would be getting paid to take the money they've been refusing to take already, if that makes sense. Like they've been, rejecting the Medicare expansions and whatnot there already. Now there's an incentive where they would get even more money if they just took the money the government's trying to give them, which would go toward health care for the denizens of Mississippi. And Tate Reeves is just having none of it. He's refusing to do it because, socialism, I guess, is the thing.
The probably fundamental flaw in Obama's presidency was he believed in the good hearts of Republicans and the good nature of them. And so the Obamacare was structured to reimburse states for accepting Medicaid expansion, right? So it was going to cover 80-90% of the costs, a lot of the costs, right? But what kind of idiot would not take free money to give their constituents health care for 10 cents on the dollar? Well, 12 states didn't. So they sabotaged Obamacare from the start and been trying to kill it for, 9 years now. And then
and one of those states, real quick, one of those states was Tennessee, by the way. And meanwhile, the hospital in my hometown has closed twice in 2 years or whatever. Can't keep the hospitals open there. And this is part of the reason why. So
So in the COVID bill, what Biden went back to was okay, well, this is the way Affordable Care Act structured. We can't restructure right now, but we're going to cover 100% of the cost if you expand it. 100% of the cost. So you can't even say your state's too broke to pay the 10% or 20% or whatever. You're not expanding government anyway. This already exists. All you have to do is take it. Now he's essentially rejecting more than it pays more than 100%. We're giving the states extra money to take it, and Tate Reeves is like, nah, still not taking it. So if you pay federal taxes in Mississippi, you were getting less than zero on your dollar. You're paying for healthcare for people in other states that you don't have access to because your governor fucking hates you, basically.
Is it that he hates the people of Mississippi, Mark, or is it just that he's got higher priorities?
Yeah, he's been real busy. For example, this week he signed a bill keeping transgender students from women's sports. It's the first anti-trans law of 2021, which we talked about in recent episodes. How many trans kids do you think there are trying to play women's girls sports in Mississippi, Trey?
Right.
It's gotta be.
Literally can't be more than a handful. I would
half dozen.
Statistically. Yeah. Right.
So that's what he's concerned with. While his constituents can't get medicine in the middle of a goddamn fucking pandemic. By the way, he lifted the state's mask orders. And while he's doing that, he still has time to go on Sunday shows and also keep repeating that Joe Biden did not legitimately win the election. So he's an asshole. I hate him. But we wanted to tell, if you guys are Mississippi voters and you're undecided on Tate Reeves, we wanted to tell you guys a little bit about him besides the things we just told you, which is pretty much all you need to know, that he doesn't care whether you live or die. And he's more concerned with doing culture war signaling and going on Sunday shows to try to gir up more insurrections at the Capitol. He got in trouble like anybody named Tate Reeves who would be climbing in Republican politics. Turns out he was in a racist fraternity that had a bunch of blackface scandals. What? No.
Surely not.
Tate Reeves?
Not Tate Reeves.
Tate Reeves? Yeah. No. So he has a fraternity called Kappa Alpha, which of course he was. And if Matt, if you have those pictures, somebody dug up these pictures from his frat days. And it includes some, when I say blackface pictures, this is not just somebody dressing up as a black person for Halloween. They did minstrel show type makeup with like red lipstick and shit.
Yeah, one of the pictures I saw, it looked like they were like in like tribal blackface or something, like full on, like, like you said, not just regular, no,
it's all bad
variety, regular blackface. This is advanced blackface that they were doing at Tate Reeves' school. Don't do any kind of blackface. All right, I'm being very clear. Usually it's somebody's like, well, I was dressing up like David Ortiz for Halloween. I had the jersey. So I browned my face up to be David Ortiz. You're like, well, you fucking suck. You're stupid. But this intentionally did blackface like they did in the minstrel shows. That picture on the right there. Let's see where they have that.
Yes.
They look like worse racist juggalos. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
It's like if you took juggalos and made them the Klan, if you mix juggalos and the Klan, this is what you come out with on the right. This is while Tate Reeves was there, by the way. So this is his fraternity while he was there. If you have the next picture, there's a big group photo where they're all dressed like the Confederate Army. And Tate Reeves is probably in that picture, although it's like taken far enough away because it has like 80 guys in it. Because that's the thing. And I don't care about being fair to Tate Reeves, but he has not been. He's not in these pictures, right? Him specifically. Like, he hasn't been confirmed and verified as being in them, but he was in this fraternity at this time when these pictures were taken, just in the interest of accuracy. That's the situation. I wonder how he went about, I don't know, how he scrubbed that in a certain, if he just got lucky because he was like passed out drunk or something every time they had Confederate picture day or whatever, or if he knew even then he wanted to get into politics, which I'm sure he did know that then, and so
they all know that,
right, and so he kindly stepped to the side whenever the cameras came out or something, but he wasn't opposed to the practice.
I'm from Virginia, and we had a governor. Our current governor also had a blackface scandal, and today, I think it's today, he just signed a bill re-enfranchising felons, giving them the right to vote. They've expanded Medicaid. Like, Ralph Northam, just because he's signing the bills the progressive legislature is putting in front of him, has turned out to be the best governor of Virginia in my lifetime. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll let that one go, I guess. But in general, a little bit more of some fun Tate Reeves facts. His running mate, his lieutenant governor, is named Delbert Hosemann, which I thought was great. And just so you know, Tennessee Republicans are all bad. Delbert Hosemann realized in 2013, when he was the Secretary of State, that the 13th Amendment, eradicating slavery, turns out Mississippi had never actually, they'd have voted to approve that, but they hadn't sent it over to the National Archives. He rectified that. So Delbert Hosemann ended slavery in Mississippi in 2013. So more power to him for that.
Well, again, they've been
Jesus
busy,
Christ.
Mark. They've had stuff going on down there. They couldn't get around to officially outlawing slavery until the 21st century, 13 years into the 21st century.
Do you remember Charles Barkley's famous quote about, I forget exactly its phrase, but like, Alabama's one saving grace is thank God for Mississippi.
It's funny you say that, because I said up top we're going to engage in that time-honored tradition of ragging on Mississippi. And yes, it's very much a thing. If people, for people from outside the South are not aware, and look, I get it. I know what it's like to be from a place that's got a whole lot of dumbasses in it. So I know there's a lot of wonderful Mississippians out there, but it is still very much a thing in the South in general that's like, well, at least we ain't Mississippi. You know what I mean? It's like, it sort of like goes down on a geographical scale where I know Kentucky's like, well, at least we're not Tennessee. And in Tennessee, we're like, well, at least we're not Alabama. And then Alabama's like, well, at least we're not Mississippi. And then Mississippi has no one to point to. Like, Mississippi's the one that we're all just like, well, look over there. Could be even worse.
They're like, at least we're not Ukraine. I don't know.
Yeah. But I believe in Mississippi. They can get it together. All right. All right. Let's get into introing our guest tonight. We'll bring him in just a second. So our guest this evening is a bit of a modern day Johnny Appleseed. This man spreads the message of progressive populism all across the American grassroots. In the 90s, he became known as America's most popular populist. He is the twice elected Commissioner of Texas Agriculture and a national radio commentator, New York Times best-selling author, and public speaker. He spent 4 decades battling the powers that be on behalf of the powers that ought to be regular people. And every month he pens the newsletter, The Hightower Lowdown, that blasts through the corporate media blockade to lend new reporting and a populist perspective on the events of the day. I would like, very quickly, before we bring him in here, his name is Jim Hightower. I want to read some of his a message he posted on his website after the election, because after the election, there's a lot of talk about how liberals, Democrats, the left, we were disappointed in the results, right? And he's trying to buoy people up. And this is what he says. This is movement building at its best and purest. Not only are we electing a broad and expanding network of officials, but also these runs, even the ones that fall short, do 3 essential things that advance the overall Democratic cause. 1, they increase the numbers, skills, and collective experience of our grassroots volunteers. 2, they spread and refine our progressive/populist message. And 3, they teach us how to run better next time if we're willing to learn. My message is an old and proven one. Persevere, keep pushing, build on what you learn, reach out. A movement is not a weekend project. So with that said, let's please bring him in here. Like I said, one of the OGs, Mr. Jim Hightower, everybody.
Hey, Trey. Mark.
Howdy, sir.
Great to be with you guys. I mean, following your dumbass presentation there, Lily Tomlin once said, no matter how cynical you get, it's almost impossible to keep up. That seems to be what's happening in America these days. So I appreciate your effort to not just expose, but to energize people to do something about this bullshit that's going on in
we do what we can.
I'm never amazed by people's capacity to say things they not only know aren't true, but don't believe, just constantly. It's the bad faith is bottomless. I thought they would get to the bottom of the well eventually, but we're not getting there.
I love your pitch about the Mnuchin lady about how valuable charity is. I think of Earl Long, former governor of Louisiana, who uh, told once about a rich man who died and tried to get into heaven on the basis of that he was a philanthropist. He said that time I put a nickel in the woman's palm who needed car fare home. That time I gave put a nickel in the blind beggar man's cup. The time I put a nickel in the Salvation Army kettle. And as you know, if you'd gone to a Southern church, you'd know that you just don't get into heaven. You've got to appeal to the angel in front of the pearly gates who decides whether you get it. And then St. Peter, back behind the gate, decides whether you get in or not. And
Right.
this angel, after this guy presented, said, "What in the world are we going to do with this man?" And St. Peter said, "Give him back his 15 cents and tell him to go to hell." That
I
is the
never
proper
heard that. I
attitude.
like that.
That's
That's
real
great.
populism right there.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
okay. Well, all right. On that note, yeah, let's talk about it again. You spent decades spreading the populist word. And lately, populism is a term that people hear more and more. You describe populism as, quote, a political doctrine rooted in the rebellious spirit and commitment to the common good of ordinary grassroots Americans, end quote. But as you know, Donald Trump has very much been painted as a populist, right? A lot of people think populist when they think of Donald Trump at this point. A, do you consider Donald Trump to be any kind of populist? And B, what is populism really? Or what should it be, I guess?
Well, Donald Trump is not even a human, much less a populist.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, let's deal with the reality here. Populism is an actual movement that began after the Civil War, 1870s, 1880s. It was it invented a very progressive new economy based not on corporatism but on cooperative uh, operations that would allow farmers and workers and et cetera to control their own destiny. They could have capital that they could invest themselves. They could control the marketplace. They would have access to all sorts of education and et cetera. Populism was a fundamental people's movement, little people's movement, battling uh, the powers that be on behalf of the powers that ought to be, those workaday, ordinary folks in our country, and they took it on. The populist movement was the first to endorse women's suffrage as a political movement. They were the first to support wage and hour laws for labor, that they should have a right to a decent wage, and a future in the economy. They were the first to oppose lobby power in the Congress, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So it was a movement of ordinary people standing up against the powers that be, the powers that were running roughshod over just farmers, over working people, over the environment, over every aspect of our lives today. And we are still in the midst of that battle. The fundamental point of populism is that too few people control too much of the money and power.
Right.
And they use that money and power to get more for themselves at our expense. That's what it is. It's simple.
Yeah. Um, so do you think, because I've said for a long time, or I've always thought that I agree with you. Donald Trump isn't even a human, let alone a populist. But there was a very concerted effort, I feel like, on his part and the part of his campaign to inject this sort of populist rhetoric into it, where he's like appealing to, regular people, working people, or whatnot. And I felt like a big part of why that seems to have worked for a lot of them is because it felt like he was the only one really doing it, and especially when you look at like the Democrats, particularly at that time, they just weren't even pretending to care about a lot of these people. And I know, obviously, I knew then and I know now that Donald Trump was full of shit when he was saying all that, but he was the only one that was like
Exactly.
attempting to say it, And like, do you think
Yeah.
that, how much of that do you think plays into it being sort of a missed
Well,
opportunity on the
it's
left,
it's
or
the
him
core of
filling
it. I
that
mean,
space,
you,
I guess?
you don't have to be in who's who to know what's what, and what's what is that neither political party is standing up
Right.
for the workaday people of the country, not
Right.
standing up for the dirt farmers, not standing up for working families. Again, not standing up for the environment, people whose water is being poisoned, et cetera, right down the line. So yeah, we open ourselves up to a Donald Trumpism,
Hmm.
which is not anything except egotism,
Right.
and that then can become a sort of godly sort of thing for a number of people because what else do they have? Well, that's the question. I mean, are we going to be a are we going to put forward a real people's politics again, a politics of ordinary people taking on those economic powers that are just barnstorming over the workaday people of the country and creating an inequality that is intolerable in a democracy. You can't have a democracy with the kind of suppression and oppression and repression that we have in our society today. We've got to put a new politics forward.
Yeah.
Do you? I was thinking today about why I've never been able to quite figure it out why Trump got hit with the label populist, and I have theories, but I think it's just because he sounded angry, and other politicians trying to get elected to national office try really hard to not sound angry. They wanted to offer these vague, positive-sounding platitudes about moving forward, and you have Trump who doesn't have the discipline to do that, so he's just yelling all the time, and so people assumes he must be mad at someone who's the right target, and I just can't be able to put my finger on it. He's just like, because I mean, Trump is mad at people who he thinks of as looking down on him, which would be like the New York Times editorial page and mainstream TV. Like he didn't get an Emmy. He didn't he's mad at like New York State building inspectors. Like those are the powers that be to him, the people that stand in the way of him getting where he wants to be, but not actual elites.
And then he built his career by coming down on people he's mad at,
Mm-hmm.
which are the working
Yeah.
people, which are the immigrants,
Right.
Mhm.
which are poor people. He hates poor people,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. So he is a complete fraud. But the question is not who is Donald Trump. The question is who are we?
Mhm.
Are we going to build a new politics that actually matters, that actually stands up to these forces that people are genuinely mad about? I do a lot of work with farmers. Farm families are being just run roughshod over. When I was first involved in this in the 1980s, I was in Iowa, and a guy came up to me and said, do you know the difference between a farmer and a pigeon?" And I said, "Well, no." And he said, "Well, a pigeon can still make a deposit on a John Deere."
Oh,
and
you got some good
and
ones. I like
and
these.
well, this is real stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
people come up with this themselves.
Right.
uh,
Um,
and they come up with it because it's reality.
Mhm.
And that's what we're facing.
so
But the beautiful reality is that the people are ready to respond to something big, something that actually empowers them again, and that goes against the corporate powers that are running roughshod over us. So I'll tell you just a quick story of a when I was first running for office in Texas. Among the issues I was running on was the gas corporations were running roughshod over the people, gouging them with exorbitant prices on their monthly bills, and I was invited into a judge's office in Tyler, Texas, East Texas, and I was told by the guy who was guiding me through Tyler, now kind of be careful because he's very conservative, so just don't dump your whole load on him. So I sat in front of him. He had his feet propped up on the desk. His hat was back. He was comfortable, and he was saying, "Okay, Sonny boy, tell me your story." And I said, "Well, I'm running, trying to do something for the people, and et cetera. And Your Honor, it seems to me that these gas utilities, they're just not being entirely fair with the consumer." And he leaned over into me with a scouring face, and I thought, oh shit, even that was too much for him. And he said, Hightower, in your private moments, wouldn't you say they're fucking us? and, and that was my lesson about who's conservative and who's progressive, who's liberal in our society. We can't make assumptions. The ordinary people know they're being roughshod over, and they will respond to a politics that responds to them.
Okay, so all right, sort of on that note, I feel like for a long time, I feel like Democrats used to be sort of the party of the working man. You know what I mean? Like that was
Yes.
part of it. They had this sort of like populist bent, and it seems like that's been mostly abandoned, apparently. And it's just, I don't know if they view it as a lost cause. It's not worth spending time on or whatever. But I mean, what do you think about that? Like what happened to that? Like what's going on with the
Well,
Democratic Party, and where
well,
has this
what
sort
happened
of
was money.
disappeared to?
Right? I mean, our party decided that it could take that same corporate money
Right.
uh, and run against the Republicans. But
Right.
I can tell you from experience, if you take that corporate check, written on the back of it is the corporate agenda, uh,
Yeah.
and they're going to cash the check, not you. And that's what happened to the party. But now there is a change coming because people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth
Mhm.
Warren and Stacey Abrams and my congressman John Lewis. He's dead, but he's still my congressman from
Mhm.
Georgia. Uh, and people like Ocasio Cortez and Deb Haaland, the new Interior
Yeah.
Secretary
Right.
from New Mexico, Dynamite. These are big changes, and people are onto it, and they're looking for a real politics. And so it's incumbent on us. Are we going to create that politics for them? Are we going to respond to them or not?
I was thinking today about because I know you wrote a book about food price gouging, and I was thinking about the grapes of wrath, which of course is where the title came from, and I was thinking about how like we the people have been sort of domesticated, like during the Depression when a bank foreclosed on a farm and somebody would come around trying to buy it for cents on the dollar, neighbors would come to the auction and stand there with a gun in the guy's back so the family could buy their own farm back for a penny or 10 cents or whatever. And why don't we do stuff like that anymore?
Well, I
I
think people
guess,
are beginning to. I think
yeah.
that groups like People's Action, Our
Hmm.
Revolution, groups called Bold and Jolt,
Hmm.
they're substituting themselves for the failure of the
Hmm.
old line establishment Democratic Party. They're coming forth with those things. I just
Hmm.
had on a Facebook Live program that I do, Jane Klebb out of Nebraska, and she took on the Keystone XL pipeline, uh,
Hmm.
not on behalf of the sand cranes who are, endangered by by the pipeline going across the Ogallala Aquifer, but on behalf of the farmers and ranchers who are being
Hmm.
roughshod over by this power. And she did things like she built a barn because she needed Obama to oppose the extension of this pipeline across the Ogallala Aquifer, and so she built a real barn, not a little cardboard thing, a real barn with solar panels on it. So Obama had to tear down that barn and tear down the solar panels in order to allow a sludge pipeline to go across people's clean water. She won
Hmm.
by making that one fight. That's the savviness that we have to have. We have to do it
Yeah.
ourselves. We got to be the clever ones.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've talked about on the show before the idea of like with the Democrats having the White House and both houses of Congress and everything, that in our opinion, if they use that to just pass actual progressive policies, which if they truly are progressive in the way we talk about them, will end up helping people, regular people. And if that works the way we've always said it will work, then there won't be this big backlash from the other side. If you actually help people, then you can reach people, right? So stop worrying about trying to about what the other side thinks and just get things done that actually address the needs of regular American people. And if you do that, whatever the politics are, you will make progress with them, right? Do you agree with that? Is that how you
Well,
see it
yes. I
going?
mean, John Mellencamp has a song. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Yeah.
and and the Democratic Party for too long did that. Now I think a change is coming. And even I was not an enthusiastic Biden
Yeah.
supporter. I was a Bernie Sanders person.
Right.
But nonetheless, there he is, and this program that he just put in with the COVID response goes to the right people to do the right thing. It's not trickle down economics, but percolate up
Right.
economics. Invest in
Mhm.
the ordinary people, and they will carry the economy forward. And you're right, Trey. If you just if they do it, people, you don't have to worry about what the right wing thinks,
Right.
because the people will figure it out for themselves. They
Right.
know whether that's what Roosevelt did.
Right.
They
Yeah, I
understood.
mean,
Wait a minute, this guy's on our side, then we're going to
Yeah.
be on his side.
Right.
speaking, I firmly believe you're correct that people know how they're, I mean, are the best judge of how their own lives are going, and will be happy when they're going well. And along those lines, you came up with what you call the Doug Jones explain the Doug Jones thing to the
Well,
listeners. They'll like
well,
that.
the media and the politicians focus on the Dow Jones average,
Mm-hmm.
the Wall Street profiteering. How's Wall Street doing? How is the Dow Jones average faring? Well, most people are wondering what about Doug and Darlene? How are they
Yeah.
doing? We need
Yeah.
the Doug Jones average.
Mhm.
What's the price of beer today? What's the price
Right.
of gasoline? I mean, these basic fundamentals, and that's what we have to get back to. And if we do, then we not only will we win, but we will be able to govern in a way that America can be proud of itself. Now, I know a lot of people say, "Well, Hightower, you can't." They've got all the money, they've got the media, et cetera, et cetera. We can't fight them. But I just point out that even the smallest dog can lift his leg on the tallest building.
I
Yeah.
mean, one thing that COVID taught me when the panic about the economy happened, when the shutdowns first happened, my first thought was, oh, holy shit, a general strike would work great. Like
Yeah.
the 2 days of everybody staying at home, like sent the entire ruling class into a huge panic.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have to be thinking in those big terms. I mean, we are, after all, the power. I mean, they have no power if
Mhm.
we actually respond, and particularly if we respond in the big ways that you're talking about. I mean, a general strike, that's considered a fantasy, even in the labor movement today. But nonetheless, it would generate a tremendous response from grassroots people.
Yeah. I mean, there was a wildcat teacher strike in Oklahoma, 2 years ago,
Bingo.
that was
Exactly
extremely
right.
effective. Yeah.
Exactly right.
All right. So before we get out of here, I want to ask you, please, to sort of elaborate on what the Hightower Lowdown is, and also how our audience, if they so choose, could learn more about you and what you're trying to do out there. So I
Well,
think it's
thank you.
important.
The Hightower Lowdown is our monthly political populist newsletter, taking on the powers that be on behalf of the powers that ought to be, and it comes out monthly, and you can connect to it through hightowerlowdown.org. We also do radio commentaries. Also available through that same website, and we do now a happy hour, Facebook happy hour at the Chat and Chew Cafe, which is right here in my kitchen, in fact, uh, and have all sorts of people, scrappy folks who are battling the bastards on behalf of the ordinary folks. So you can connect through it all with through the hightowerlowdown.org, hightowerlowdown.org, and there I am.
All right. Well, everybody check that out. Jim Hightower, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Enjoyed to be with
Much
y'all.
respect.
Terrific.
Keep doing what
Enjoyed
you've been
it.
doing for forever, brother.
Thank you so much, sir.
All righty. Yeah.
That was hard. I mean, like, as long as he's been at it, I mean, he was like first started writing about politics and organizing in the 70s, and if he's optimistic, then I'll be optimistic.
For sure. And that's part of like I didn't read the entire quote, but I was reading part of his post-election message. And when he was talking about you got to persevere, you got to keep pushing. I mean, obviously he speaks from experience, but then he goes on to say there, he's like, if you don't believe me, ask those who launched the women's suffrage movement, none of whom lived to vote, but they kept advancing. Or ask any of the various communities of outsiders who fought literally and are still fighting for civil rights and human dignity. Like it's a marathon, not a sprint. You know what I mean? And I've also been, more and more lately, I felt like I've tried to remain optimistic, but I've always been generally optimistic because I just feel like the march of progress is inexorable on a macro scale. Like we've mostly progressed one direction. And I know every now and then we take a few steps back, but generally speaking, over the course of history, we have moved in what I consider to be the proper direction. So I'm just like still holding on to that, trying to have faith. I don't think that younger, Mark, me and you, hell, we're both old now. The kids coming up today, I just don't believe that the huge chunk of them are, shitty racist dipshits, regressives that are going to drag us backwards in time, and if that's true, then I think we'll be okay.
I mean, there's that old Churchill quote, like if you're 20 and you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart, but if you're 40 and not conservative, you don't have a brain. That old thing,
right?
Which there's some truth that people get more conservative as they age, except the things that make people more conservative as they age, stuff like buying a house and paying property taxes, like annoying school board stuff, having kids. Those are things a lot of people, a lot of millennials and Zoomers can't afford to do. There's nothing to make them more conservative.
Right.
So are you like the boomers might have fucked themselves. They've carved out. They've cut the kids off economically so much they're going to come out radical communists.
Yeah. So yes, Matt. Thank you. Questions and comments, you can start throwing them up there. I also think that part of it is just like because of the way the March of Progress works. Like when me and you are papaws, when we're 70 something or whatever, we may not have the most open-minded viewpoints on like cyborg rights or whatever's going on at that time. Like we'll be sitting there like, back in my day, we didn't have robots with dicks. I don't know why robots need dicks for, or whatever.
No daughter of mine's dating somebody from Jupiter.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that's part of it too. I remember I first heard that quote, the whole liberal at 20, no heart, conservative at 40, no brain, from the president of the business school that I went to in college. And when he first said that, I was like a diehard liberal at the time. But when he said that, I was like, oh, that's clever. And then I find out later, it's like, well, yeah, it's a Winston Churchill quote. But I think it's one of those that like sounds real good, but really is bullshit. I remember actually right after I heard that, I parroted it to my dad on the phone. I was like, listen to what this professor said or whatever. And as soon as I said it, my dad was like, well, I don't know. That sounds like bullshit to me. He was like, I mean, I'm 50 and I'm not fucking conservative. Like, I don't know. He wasn't happy.
Well, I've never even really been able to figure out what the expression even means, because it's like, why are you bragging about how you forgot how to be warm-hearted?
To care about people?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yes, you forgot to give a shit about everybody but yourself as you got older, You
got yours. Yeah.
Yeah, that's ultimately what it all boils down to for me with all that is like just even pretending to give a shit about people who aren't like you, or not. Crystal as y'all know, I don't say words good. Crystal Claucci says, fantastic interview. What a cool fella. Yeah, like I said, an OG. Been doing it since me and Mark were a glimmer in our daddy's eyes.
I feel like Matt only seeks out last names with at least 3 Z's and K's in them to fuck with you.
One vowel.
Texas liberal populists are a special breed, the prairie populist sort of thing. Like Molly Ivins was one of my favorite writers, and I was lucky enough to work for the same newspaper she did, and so I got to read her for free all the time until she passed. And they're fighting and losing constantly makes your back strong.
Right. But yeah, well, we were just the thing we were just talking about. I saw this meme or this tweet that was going around this weekend. I don't know if you saw it. Somebody took a picture, or either maybe they found a picture on the internet or something from the New York subway of a woman in a burqa sitting beside a drag queen with their legs spread, you know, and heel full drag queen get up, and then a woman in a burqa sitting beside them. And the person who tweeted it, this conservative that tweeted it, captioned it, "This is the America that liberals want," right? And it's like, and it got a lot of traction over there, but then someone, this isn't my thought, I agree with this, but someone else pointed out, it's like, you know what, you like, you know, these two people both already exist, right? Meaning, like, you're saying they shouldn't be able to. It's not like a hypothetical future that liberals are going to bring to bear if they are allowed to have any power or whatever. Like, these are real people that exist in the world, and what you're saying is you are of the opinion that they should not be allowed. Like, that they should be.
You're saying it's literally the America that already exists.
Right. Yeah.
It's like this is the present that Americans already, the future liberals want is the president that already exists, which is why it's a picture, got a picture taken of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, but also like you're like the core essence of conservatism is of the people I grew up around with is like, I got my own property. I stay on my land. I'm my own fucking business, and you leave me alone. Right. There's two people who couldn't be more different, minding their own business on their goddamn way to work in the morning. That is the essence of, that's supposed to be the future the conservatives want.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Stay out of my fucking business. Yeah. I'm going to do
I
my
also
thing.
like,
it ain't none of your goddamn business, so leave me alone.
Also, I'm not sure how we got there, but like a person who's observant enough to wear a burqa is not left wing.
Right. Yeah, of course. Right. Yeah.
Like yep. I mean, I mean, like I don't know how like somebody made this point where they're talking about like for the government doesn't count puts Islamic terrorism as a different category than right wing terrorism, but Islamic terrorism is right wing terrorism.
Very much right wing terrorism. Yeah, I used to have a bit about how all the similarities between like hardcore conservatives and fundamentalist Muslims or whatever. Because yeah, fundamentalism is fundamentalism, but you were saying, you're like, that's not a left wing thing. I remember a brief anecdote. I used to, at my old day job, I had this super conservative lady I worked with who we would get into debates all the time, and I liked her. Well, hang on, I'll come back to this. Let's read this. Mary in San Francisco says, "I've gotten more left/progressive as I've gotten older. Once life kicks you in the teeth a few times, you start seeing shit for what it is, and as a Christian, I'm obligated to give a crap about people." Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with all that. I wish everybody felt the same way you do, Mary in San Francisco, because that's especially Christians. That is the way that Christians should look at everything, but many of them don't.
The internet's radicalized me just like as everybody else, and I keep moving left and left. Like everybody thinks they're being radicalized in the right direction, and I get that, but I don't know how you can scroll across just as many GoFundMe's for healthcare and not want to radically change the way America's organized. It's bizarre.
Right. There'll be like a newspaper article about some girl, some like 12-year-old girl, and it's framed as like 12-year-old girl starts lemonade business to pay for her father's surgery or whatever. And it's like, what a hero. And it's like, no, what a fucking travesty that is.
Yeah.
That's
there was literally
reality we live in. That's not a feel-good story. That's a fucking shame.
There was literally a viral story last week about a girl running a lemonade stand to pay for her own brain surgeries, and it was presented as a heartwarming tale. It's like this is the girl doing child labor to pay for life-saving brain surgery. It's not heartwarming in any way.
Yeah, it's a fucking nightmare. So, all right, the anecdote I was telling, I'm actually thinking, I've either told this on here or on the Well Read podcast before, but still briefly, I used to get in political debates with this super conservative I worked with all the time, and I actually really liked her as a person, but we were very far apart politically, and she knew that. And one day we were in a training class, and the training instructor asked, like, let's say hypothetically that the state of Tennessee was about to pass a new law that said it's illegal to smoke cigarettes outdoors in the state of Tennessee. Can you give some challenges to a law like that, like legal challenges? Because it was like a contract class we were taking. And I said, smart assily. I said, this is America, you know, and people kind of laughed. So I felt good. That's all I wanted was a couple laughs or whatever. That's all I was saying. But the woman I'm talking about turned around and looked at me and she goes, typical liberal. And then she turned back around and I was like, no, it wasn't. Like, that was a super conservative thing I just said. Like, that was very conservative. Like, fuck you, the government. You can't tell me what to do. That wasn't liberal at all, you know? And that was like the first time I realized, like, oh, liberal, that just means whatever you don't think is correct, right? So, like, we're talking about fundamentalist Muslims. They're grouped in with like the left wing just because y'all don't believe the shit that they believe. So it's like anything that you disagree with becomes liberal. Like liberal is the umbrella that covers everything you disagree with, whether there's any truth to, you know, where it actually falls on the spectrum or not.
Yeah. I mean, like we're not. I'm not. By the way, I'm not saying that like observant Muslims can't be left wing. Obviously, Ilhan Omar and there's
that's why I keep saying fundamentalist.
Yeah,
for the record, because I feel like fundamentalism is another level. You know.
Yeah, but like one thing American right wingers and fundamentalist Muslims both have in common is they will set off bombs to stop abortions. So
right
there you go. That's what we're saying.
All right. On that bombing baby note, let's get out of here. It's a good place to end, I think. Thank you all for joining us. We'll be back next week on Weekly Skews. I'm Trey, and that's Mark.